send you changes, and then you were supposed to cross off the old stuff and then write the new stuff above it in the manual somewhere. And then you put down changed by change number 1, dated 15 April 1992 or whatever. You wrote if you did that. If you just took the page off, that was already there. Then somewhere in the front of the manual you wrote change 1 posted and your initials. So here's the SOM 101. On the inside cover, it says all these changes were made, one after another, what pages were changed, and everything like that. If you go to those pages, there is no annotation that says change 1 posted and the new material, or there's nothing where the page was removed and it says change 1. That's the first thing that should have got everybody all excited. All these people that have said they've been in the military before apparently don't know how to change a manual.
Well, most of them don't. They barely could, if they even ever read them. Most people, if I wanted to read it, they wouldn't even do it. I'd have to put it in their hand, and they had to be pretty high up, and they'd usually say, just read it to me, damn it.
So then the next thing was I took the manual, and based on what I know in the military, I wrote up 50 things that were wrong with it.
Oh, okay.
One of the things that's wrong with it, it doesn't tell you if you encounter a crash saucer and there's liquid material. It doesn't tell you how to recover that. If it's a crash saucer and there's liquid material either spilling out of the ground or inside the UFO, what precautions do you have to take? How do you recover it? What kind of labeling do you put on it? Nothing like that. I mean, this manual tells you how to do nothing.
This isn't the same one I saw. The one that Majestic 12 that they've got out there is bogus. That's not the same one. So there is
SOM 101. SOM 101. Which
that's
underneath
the one that they say is fake, right? Is that the one that Robert Wood had?
Yeah, Robert Wood had it, but Berliner had it too.
Okay, so I talked to Don Berliner. Interesting. Okay, so this is their fake one. Did they, okay, so that was Bill Moore. Now tell Janet doesn't know the story, I don't think. Janet, you're not familiar with the backstory, are you? With Don Berliner, Bill Moore? I don't think I've ever, I don't think she ever knew that. Did you, Janet? It may not have come across your desk. Can you hear me?
Maybe
Let me see.
off.
Let me see.
Berliner got that manual and he took it out to the Army publication facility out there in Washington D.C. and the guys looked at it and he said, "Does this look like a military manual?" And they said, "Well, it's awful rough if it is a military manual." Now, he didn't leave it with them so they could have time to comment on it, but they looked at it, and they said, "Well, there's the appendix in there. That's like a military manual is written, and there's the paragraphs are numbered, but it looks pretty rough." That's what they told them. It looks pretty rough, but it could be one of ours. He didn't leave it there so they could analyze it. He just took it over there to have them look at it. So on the face of it, it looks like a military manual. Well, it is based on a military manual. It's based on an Air Force manual, and right under SOM 101 is a technical manual number. Technical order. Now, that's the Air Force. Technical orders are the Air Force. So, let's see. Timothy Cooper, who worked, his father worked at Holloman Air Force.
Yeah, baby, we can hear you. Janet's back.
Can you hear me?
Now hold on, Jan. Janet, can you hear us because you were breaking up?
Yeah, I had to call back in. I had an incoming call and it kicked me off, and then I don't know, something was going on. I couldn't. I was at Penn State University in 1990, and I spoke to a MUFON fellow, and he had interviewed Dr. Eric Walker, who is the former president of Penn State University from 1956 to 71, and he was supposed to be the executive secretary of MJ-12, recording secretary of MJ-12, and he was executive secretary of the Defense Research Board from 1950 to 51, effectively an assistant secretary of defense. And he was one of the members of the team who in 1950 were invited to WPAFB to be briefed on the details of UFO crash recovery. Anyway, he was at Penn State University, and I was there at the same time. And I was meeting with the MUFON director of that part of Pennsylvania, and he had just written a book called UFOs, MJ-12, and the Government. And it was published in 1990 by the MUFON Research Organization. So I was there, and I held that book in my hand. And I can't remember the gentleman's name, and I apologize, but he said, I really have a dilemma because I just spent the last 2 years tracking this down and talking to Dr. Walker, and he was ready to come out and tell the world the truth behind Majestic 12, which, you know, that he had confirmed that some contact had been with aliens. He said, however, that trying to uncover the answer was a waste of time and that the technology was way beyond anything we would be able to understand. But he was retracting. Somebody got to him, and he said, I can't let this, I can't come out and talk about this. If you want to publish it, fine. But anyway, so that's the story. And then I ended up getting a package to deliver to Eric Walker's office. He was a professor emeritus. He was a former Penn State University president. And so I was in his office, and I put a package on his desk. I didn't see him. I didn't get to meet him, but I was there with the backstory. So I think it was real. I don't know what information you're getting, but I believe it's real.
I think so. What happened is the truth was covered by fake news, and then that got out to people like Moore and Berliner. That's what I'm thinking, because everything, we're bad about putting stories on top of stories. Rick Doty was a prime example of that, if you know what I mean. So we always have those that we cover deep. So
well, Rick Doty was the hero of Bob Pratt's novel. He wasn't named in there. Doty was the hero of Bob Pratt's novel.
Okay. Tell us about that, if you know anything about it.
Well, all I'm saying is he's not named, but that's who it is, and that's what Moore was. He was inching. You know, it's like we have today. Oh, I've got something great. It's coming next week. It's coming next week. Oh, we're coming next week. And then he puts out a little bit about MJ-12, and then they were doing this kind of thing. Postcards were coming in from all over, you know, from Fiji and Australia and Norway, telling people to go to there was a document, and we had to find it, and it was somewhere, and they kept giving hints about where it was. And so every few weeks, Bill Moore had another postcard and people couldn't figure out where to go. It was trying to point people to the National Archives and the Twine and Cutler memo.
Now we call
So Moore had these things. So every few weeks he'd get another hint about where these things were. Anyway, it was building up, and people were getting all excited about it. And Timothy Green got a copy of all the MJ-12 stuff. So he put in his book, about MJ-12. He scooped Moore on it. Moore was going to have a movie and television programs, and he was going to have a book. But Timothy Good in England scooped Moore on MJ-12, and that's when Moore kind of fell apart. And,
he sort of went away, didn't he? Well, Timothy Good,
he faded away, but before he did that, he went to Las Vegas, and he was supposed to give a speech there, and he gave a speech to say, I'm an unpaid agent for the OSI, and I've been putting out false information. I'm a disinformation officer for the OSI. Unpaid.
unpaid.
Bull butter. Bull butter. So he made sort of half confession, where he, maybe he could resurrect himself later on. I don't understand why Timothy Good, scooping Moore on MJ-12, stopped Moore from keep on going. He could have just kept on going, but he didn't, and he just faded away. And then Stan Freeman is the one that picked up the MJ-12 mantle after that, and he kept it going.
That makes sense. That's when I came into the picture. But Stan was working on the same one I was on the Roswell crash, right? But I didn't know I was working on it. I was one of those sent in to get the facts as an unknown. Nobody knew who I was. I didn't even know who I was.
So,
I'm not kidding. I got to go meet Jesse Marcel to see if there was any truth in that. And so did Stanton Friedman. And so did a lot of Men in Black. And Jesse told me, he said at his own table. Now, I was talking to Calvin Parker last night. Calvin was asked to go to his deathbed. So Jesse Marcel wanted to talk to him. I should have covered that more. I'll get him back. But we've dropped a lot of names in here that's good information. But Timothy Good was a major UFO authority. So tell Janet and everybody, because he was interested in Major Donald Kehoe's book, and so was I. I have it here in my house, one of the few that made it from Kentucky to Florida, and the cover got ripped off, which really upset me. Now, this is when Stanton Friedman and I started talking, and Stanton did the MJ-12 book. He sent me 2 or 3 of his books, signature. I framed his signature, but unfortunately I left it in Kentucky. So all my reports on this particular project are gone. But Timothy Good was a player, Don Berliner, Stanton Friedman, Walter Hout, Glenn Dennis, Rick Doty. The only ones that weren't in the investigation were Linda Moulton Howell. Anything to do with MUFON, none of them, because they were not people of interest. But tell me what you know, so Janet can track this back to 55. It all started with Major Donald Kehoe's book. Is that what you understand with Stanton and Timothy Good and all those people?
No. This stuff didn't start till the 80s.
Well, what about Major Donald Kehoe? Because
What about Major Donald Kehoe? I'm saying, he didn't have anything to do with MJ-12.
Well, what about Hill and Cotter, all the people that he cited that were working?
Hill and Cotter and Kehoe went to Annapolis together. They were classmates.
You've done a lot of research. But keep going. This is good, Janet. We'll put all this together, and then we can. But this is good. All right. So Timothy